Let me do the chain around my neck twice. If there's anything that makes you guys angrier than even the idea of 36-inch wheels, it's gotta be that the newest drivetrain has yet one more cog added to it. But despite all that anger, here we are in 2020 with 12 speeds on the back of our bike. I'm Mike Levy, and on today's Explainer, we're gonna talk all about 12 speed. Why the hell do we have 12 cogs? And what's the difference between 11 and 12 speed aside from just one click and one cog? Should I say let's shift into gear and let's get into it? Before 2012, most of us had front derailleurs and 2 or even 3 chain rings on the front of our bikes. Then, in 2012, SRAM released their 11-speed XX1. And that was the first time that a major drivetrain manufacturer had offered a purpose-built single-ring drivetrain. Drivetrain. So many drivetrains. Why are we talking about 11-speed first? Well, it's because that a lot of the ideas that SRAM used to bring that 11-speed XX1 drivetrain to life were also used to make 12-speed possible. Stuff like the derailleur that was designed specifically for a single chainring, the XD FreeHub that allowed for the 10 to 42 tooth cassette and the 420% range, and especially the narrow wide tooth profile of the chainring that helped to keep that chain on the single ring. 11-speed XX1 was around for 4 years when SRAM released their 12-speed drivetrain under the Eagle name. Now, it offered a crazy, for the time, 500% range from a cassette with a 10-tooth small cog and a 50-tooth big cog. That's 80% more, that's 80% more than 11-speed XX1 that came before it. 80%. It means it's 80% of the time it's better. All the time. Every time. Quick mental math. So, what the heck was Shimano doing during all this? Well, I suspect they were working on their front derailleurs for a little too long. It took them until 2018 to release their own single-ring 12-speed drivetrain, XTR M9100. And just like how SRAM had to come up with a few clever ideas to make theirs work, Shimano had to do the same. They have their microspline FreeHub, the cassette with the 10 to 51 tooth cogs, rear derailleur made for a single ring drivetrain, and all the other expected bits. But you do not need to spend $2,000 or whatever to get 12 speed. Since then, both companies have released far less expensive 12-speed drivetrains like Deore, NX, and others. So there's other options out there. Also, I should mention that there's other aftermarket component companies out there that offer all sorts of drivetrain add-ons, derailleur modifications, and things like that to extend ranges. For this video, we're just gonna stick to the 2 big players, SRAM and Shimano. So, what is the actual difference between 11-speed and 12-speed, besides the obvious, which is one click and one cog? Well, it comes down to 2 important things: range and some really tiny measurements. Let's talk about range first. When 11-speed was released, SRAM's XX1 system, the cassette had a 10-tooth small cog, 42-tooth big cog, 10 times 42, 420% range. Without a front derailleur and 2 chain rings, your range comes from your cassette, remember? And that 420% couldn't match what a front derailleur provided. But along comes 12-speed, 10-tooth small cog, 50-tooth big cog, 10 times 50, 500%. Much better, and for a lot of people, that works out. I know that you guys are just dying to talk about chain width and cog spacing next. First, we're gonna go way back to 8-speed chains. Just for some perspective, they were a full 7 millimeters wide at the rivet. That's the chain's widest point. Now that's 2 millimeters skinnier than a single-speed chain. A 9-speed chain is 6.5 to 7 millimeters wide. A 10-speed chain, that's 6 millimeters wide. Chains meant to work with 11-speed drivetrains, they're 5.5 millimeters wide. 12-speed chains, finally, they're 5.3 millimeters wide at the rivet. So So you guys probably know why the chains are getting skinnier. It's because they're squeezing more cogs into the same amount of space, meaning the cogs have to get skinnier. They also have to get closer together. That's really important when we talk about chain widths because they're designed to work with a very specific width chain. So I know a guy who used an 11-speed chain on a 12-speed drivetrain. So that chain should have been 0.2 millimeters too wide. It only sounds like it is only a tiny little bit, but the drivetrain, it was never quite right. And it always went like in his ears, and it eventually made him a little crazy. He's never been the same since. But you can mix some things. I know a guy who put one of those fancy X-Dome SRAM cassettes on his bike. They're super light, those machine steel things. But he wanted to shift it with an XTR derailleur and an XTR shifter, and it worked just fine. I know another guy who did a similar thing, except he used an XTR cassette, an XTR derailleur, but he wanted to move it with the SRAM shifter, and it worked okay. Right now, somewhere in Chicago and in Japan, someone important is going, what's happening? They're getting like a cramp somewhere or something. So one final disclaimer, again, all of this stuff, it always works the best as intended when it's together as one ecosystem. So your SRAM stuff, your drivetrain will work better if it's just all in your SRAM pile. And your Shimano pile is just Shimano pile. Don't mix them officially. Maybe mix them a little bit. Whatever. Let's talk about what 12-speed gave us. Why do they keep adding cogs back there when we all get so mad when they do that? And why are we up to 12 of them? Why do we have 12 cogs? The answer, well, it's pretty straightforward. It has nothing to do with planned obsolescence, I think I pronounced, or a secret derailleur cabal or anything like that. That would be way more interesting. So here are the main reasons why we're running 12 cogs instead of 6 or 3 or 8 or 10. The first one, we just talked about it, it's range. Because you don't have a front derailleur, your range has to come from your cassette, and that's why they start at 10 and go to 50 something to give you that 500% gearing range. But you're probably wondering, why can't we have a 6-speed cassette or an 8-speed cassette or whatever, 3-speed cassette that has a similar range, just less cogs? Well, the answer has something to do with cadence. Unfortunately, our legs, they're attached to our brains, and our brains want our legs to go around at a certain pace. Now, to make this a little more relatable, we're going to talk about cars for a second. Older cars, they had 3 and 4-speed transmissions. New cars, some of these things have 10-speed transmissions. The reason they do that is for efficiency. They want that engine to be running at a certain RPM for fuel efficiency, but also for maximum speed and acceleration. You get in the right gear, you accelerate faster. And it's the same thing with us. So 12 speed, you have more gears to select from. That means smaller jumps in between the gears, and that means that our bodies can be more efficient. All right, after all that, what do you guys think about 12-speed drivetrains? Are you stoked with how things are going, or would you have pressed pause back when we were running 8 cogs out back? Let us know in the comments below.